Hi, I'm Aron Bernstein, and if you ever wanted to learn how to read music, you've come to the right place. In this video, I'll introduce you to the basics of music notation, including the staff, clefs, and how to relate what you're seeing on the page with what you hear. Now, because reading music takes some fluency with the note letter names, I recommend first watching my video on the musical alphabet. On the other hand, if you've seen it, let's continue. One of the things that notation represents is pitch. That's just the highness or lowness of any sound. Now at the top of your screen is the modern music staff with 5 lines and 4 spaces in between. Now it doesn't take any training to see that if I play some rising tones, the notes will also go up on the staff. Or here's Joy to the World. And you can see the notes going down. If I move to the very next note, I'm stepping, and the notes go line, space, line, space, line. But if I skip notes, it goes line to line, or space to space. So reading music is largely a matter of seeing patterns on the staff and understanding what those patterns sound like. Now, watch what happens if I just keep on going up. Line, space, line, and we've reached the top line on the staff, but I could go further, and we just keep adding spaces and lines above the staff. Notice these small additional lines called ledger lines. Similarly, if my notes keep going down, we start adding spaces and ledger lines below the staff. Okay, next step. What actual note names do these lines and spaces represent? So far, we've just looked at a blank staff, and there's no way to know the actual pitches. That's why we're going to add a clef. This is a treble clef. All it means is that we have high notes. So if you see this clef, chances are you're dealing with any note between middle C and the top half of the keyboard. Okay, here's middle C again on the piano. And on the staff, right on that first ledger line below. Now, if you're thinking that the treble clef looks kind of like a fancy G, that's because it is. The treble clef is also called the G clef because it puts the first G above middle C, right there on the second line up. See how that line runs right through the belly of the treble clef? So those are the first 2 notes I want you to remember on the treble staff, middle C and treble G. And if you place your right hand on the keyboard with your thumb on middle C, you can play from C to G. Okay, what about the low notes? Well, if we start on middle C and go down again, you'll notice up on the staff that we start getting down into some awkward looking ledger lines. After a while, it starts looking pretty ridiculous. So instead, we're going to bring in a whole new staff down there with its own clef. This is the bass clef. And this one is for low notes, usually everything from middle C on down. Okay, here's middle C again. And you can see how it got its name now. It's exactly in the middle between the treble staff and the bass staff. If we go back to the treble staff, there's middle C on that first ledger line below. And if we go to the bass staff, there's middle C again, this time on the first ledger line above. Middle C and middle C, just 2 different ways of writing the same note. Now, let's stay on the bass staff. You can see that the bass clef has 2 dots, like eyes on either side of that 4th staff line. The bass clef is also called the F clef because it puts the first F below middle C, right there on the line between the bass clef's eyes. So these are 2 notes you'll want to remember on the bass staff, middle C and bass F. And if you place your left hand on the keyboard with your thumb on middle C, you can play from bass F up to middle C. All right, let's bring back the treble staff. This is the grand staff, which is how keyboard music is written. One staff on top for the right hand, and a second staff below for the left. And if we put middle C on there, treble G above, and bass F below, we've got our bearings. These three special notes are called guide notes because, first of all, they're easy to remember, and second, these notes literally guide us to nearby notes. Let's say you see this note on the bass clef. Well, you can see that it's just a step up from bass F, so it must be this G. Let's try another one. This one is just a step down from treble G. Now be careful because we're going down and we need to think backward on our musical alphabet. So down one note from treble G would be this F on the keyboard. Now I want to show you one more thing about how keyboard music is written. Keep an eye on middle C and watch what happens. The treble and bass staves have moved apart, and middle C has split into two different looking notes. Of course, as we well know, they're both middle C. Here it is on the treble staff, one ledger line below, and the same middle C on the bass staff, one ledger line above. The reason piano music has the staves wrenched apart like this is because often there are a lot of extra performing directions added right between the staves, like piano, meaning play softly, forte, meaning play loud, maybe a crescendo, which means get louder, or leggero, meaning play lightly. So be sure to remember what middle C looks like on the treble and bass staves. Now I'm going to play a melody. You can see how the last note, A, is two ledger lines down below on the staff. It's a bit awkward to look at, but that's how this A looks if you write it on the treble staff. Now we're going to take those same notes I played and move them down to the bass staff. These are exactly the same notes. There's that A I just played, but now it's on the top line of the bass staff. Now look at the E. It's a bit awkward to look at on the bass staff, two ledger lines above, but watch us bring these notes back to the treble staff. Now that E we just saw is on the bottom line of the treble staff, so we can write it here, or here. Same exact notes, just two different ways of writing them. Alright, I hope this gives you a good start on music notation. What I recommend now is that you watch my next video, Intro to Music Notation Part 2, for more guide notes and more tools in reading music. As a music teacher, I've often had students ask, if I struggle with reading music, can I still become a good musician? The answer, absolutely. You see, the Western music tradition has gone farther down the road of notating music than just about any other. And that's given rise to the unfortunate idea that this is music. And it isn't. This is paper. It's just a visual representation, a reinforcement of music, nothing more. And this piece of music doesn't actually exist until it's performed. Now, this isn't to say that music notation isn't important. It's a valuable skill. It's a great way to transmit information. It's just not the end-all, be-all of music. And if you still have doubts, remember that neither Robert Johnson, Eric Clapton, all four of the Beatles, or Jimi Hendrix ever learned how to read music. So how well you read music notation is not a reflection of how musical you are. In fact, it usually takes longer to master reading music than it does to learn how to play it. So take your time with notation, and no matter what instrument you play, be sure to have some fun. I'm Aron Bernstein, and thank you for joining me.